Hi, I'm Mimika Cooney, and welcome to Mimika TV. I knew I would mess it up. The place to build a brilliant business. You can see my eyes is blab. Like, oh, we're looking everywhere. I tend to do that a lot. So we shall try focus today. It is early for me. It's 9 o'clock. The coffee has not taken over yet, but we will welcome our guest who is coming direct from China, Shanghai, China. So he's in the future. He is 9 p.m. my time. So I'm so excited, but let me give you a little bit of a rundown of what we're going to cover. So today we are talking about the art of apprenticeship for authors. Now, Azul is a writer, a coach, and an educator who's inspired dozens of authors, as well as helped cutting-edge schools and organizations across the world, including Australia, Canada, Spain, Israel, India, Chile, and China. When he's not working or writing or coaching, he loves participating in slam storytelling. And we're going to ask him about that. Connecting with like-minded entrepreneurs, traveling the world with his partner and 2 teenage children. He currently lives in Shanghai, China, where he spends his time building a community of individuals dedicated to igniting their passions and making a living doing what they love. So we are in the right place, because here at Mimika TV is all about passion, business, and making money with our business. So welcome, Azul. Welcome to Mimika TV.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Well, I'm so excited to connect in real time, because I know you and I have liaised a bit on Facebook and got to know each other. So I'm really excited to dive right in, because you've got some great content that I know a lot of us online entrepreneurs and especially authors are really going to benefit from today. So I'm going to welcome everyone who's joined the show. If you just joined us, please do click on Tell a Little Bird and tell your friends to join the party. We're going to be having some great content. And to remind you that if you stay on and watch to the end, one of our lucky viewers will get to win our goodie giveaway. And Azul has kindly donated a $375 author coaching session. Yeah. So you got to be in it to win it. So pay close attention. So let's dive right in with the content. I really love to know how you can help our audience, especially those who are thinking of writing a story or a book. I would love to give them some great tips. Now, I've written 2 books myself, and I always describe writing my books as having a baby, like pregnancy. Okay, for us women will understand. Yay, excited, I'm pregnant. Oh gosh, I feel nauseous. Oh my gosh, I feel tired. Oh, when is this ever going to end? The pain towards the end, and then out pops the baby, and you are just elated. You just forget about all the pain. So how can we make it less painful? Please do share.
Yeah, right. I think that's the biggest question people ask me is like, how do you get past the point of where I have an idea, but I don't know what to do? And I think a lot of people it's the planning process, because in school, they don't really prepare you. Even though I spent a lot of years as a classroom teacher, they don't prepare you to finish something so long. Like you're prepared to do something really short. And it's really a matter of like thinking through, what is the message I'm trying to share? Like, what's the big picture? And so really, I often tell authors, you first know what it is you're trying to write the book for. Some authors are trying to write it to get notoriety, like they really want to grow in their industry, or pivot, like they want to become known for something in their industry. So knowing your purpose is important, because you know how it is. Like you mentioned, getting to the end is really tough. And if you don't know why you're doing it, it's just so much easier to give up, right? So know your purpose, know why you're doing it. If you really want to become a speaker, for example, and you know that's your purpose, and you want to transition out of your work that you're doing, but into a new and be an expert, you really got to have content, something to share with people. So know that's the first thing before you even get to writing. Like vision boarding, the reason why is important. Knowing clearly, if someone asks you, so why are you writing a book? If you can't articulate it, then they probably don't have enough staying power. The second one is to really get like a clear mind map. Mind map out everything that's in your head. Most writers, they don't map out everything that's in their head before they start, and they end up getting like, it's like a funnel. They try to pour it through a funnel and it gets stuck, and then the moment it gets stuck, they give up. But if you mind map and get all of it out of your head before you start, you can clearly see everything that's out there, and you can eliminate things before you start. And then you don't have to worry about, did I have this done? Do I need to include that? It's already laid out. And not thinking about it like a book is another important thing. Think of it as small bite-sized snips that you're going to tackle each day.
So kind of like what they taught us in school, right? Do the little spider diagrams, a little bubble line, a little bubble. Ooh, what idea do I have there, right? It kind of seems like, duh, I should know these things, but it is hard. But now what happens if you don't really know, like you're saying, lay out the ideas for the book? So in other words, this isn't something you're going to know straight away, right? Is there something that is the process going to bring it out, the ideas that maybe you didn't think of?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think sometimes you don't know completely what this book's about. Sometimes you just have just a nugget, a nugget of an idea. Like, I know kind of what I want it to be about, and I have lots of things to say, but laying it all out in front of you, then you can start clustering them together. Like, this section. One of my authors that I coach, her name's Dana Malstaff, and she's a social content specialist, but she really, when she started to map it out, realized she had a whole different book in mind once she started to map it out, because she had passion in an area around motherpreneurs. She probably doesn't like that word as much as I do, but she really has an audience of mothers who she really wanted to write for. And that started to evolve as she started to write it. She realized this wasn't just about content. It was about creating an audience for someone she cared about. So she was able to find her book, be coached through it, and then tell her story. So that was a really important process part.
Now, would you say this is the same kind of process that goes through whether you're doing fiction, nonfiction, business books, like whether it's a techie type of book to whether it's maybe a memoir? Was there a different process with a different type of niche that you're going for?
I think this works really well for nonfiction in particular, because those are most of the people that I help coach. But I really think that it can work for any genre. It's really, the problem is if imagine your brain just being clouded with thought. Sort of like anyone who's into meditation realize all those thoughts come and go. But when you go to write, they don't just magically get to leave your brain. They still cloud your thinking. So getting them out of your brain really helps. So I think it can work for both. I've seen both authors do it in fiction and nonfiction. Right.
And would you say, is there something about actually handwriting notes, like taking a pen and paper as opposed to typing it? Is there do you think there's a difference in that?
I think so. And I really inspire or encourage people to try to do paper and pencil. In fact, because we are so connected to technology, we can easily get distracted by the shiny object. The notification, just even trying to do this blab, there's stuff everywhere to notice. And so one of the things I noticed is the first book that I wrote, I really did all with paper and pencil. I didn't touch the computer first. And that was a really difficult task, but it really helped me not have a reason to get to distract. I know Pat Flynn from Smart Passive Income, when we were working on his book, he mapped it all out and then put it onto Post-its and organized it by category once he mind mapped it out. And it really helped him stay focused and visually kind of be able to process that. And that was a really helpful tool for him.
Oh, I actually listened to that interview. I love SPR. I'm like, ooh, I got to listen to what Azul has to say. This is like, it's so exciting. Because I think we almost see it. Wouldn't you agree that some people think that they see it as a big elephant, like the big book has to be finished. And like, if I don't have it all together, like this could take forever. And I know I made the mistake too of having my editor, and I published mine traditionally. So you had the whole publisher and editor thing, and then you have the deadline, and then the deadline and the deadline. And I kind of find like, because I spent so much time pontificating the idea and getting so stuck in the beginning, I basically wrote the whole book in 4 weeks, but I had 18 months of stress. So I would not advise you do that. So how can we break it down further? So we started, for those who recently joined us, we've started about building the building blocks towards writing your end result, which is your book. So you said mind mapping, and I have to agree. I love pen and pencils and paper too. There's something about our brain, right, that actually gets us out of, it's more of like when we're kids, right? Crayola pencils, we kind of get more creative. So we have our pen and paper out there. Let's break down what exactly would you do in a brain dump? Like, what is a valid idea and what is not? Or do you just think, put it all out there?
I put it all out there because sometimes the smallest idea triggers something better. So don't judge yourself. Set aside judgment about, is this the right thing? Because when you go to type, the blank page is a scary thing, right? I've encouraged some people to not use words or just use phrases or small words or even symbols. Don't get caught up in if it's right. I think people really, it's like the fear is greater than the actual content. Like you said, you postponed it for months and months and months because you're just afraid. And a lot of the coaching work I do is getting people through the fear that this is not what I should say. I don't know if it's right. Will people think I'm a fraud? Or all these kind of things that get in our way. But when you're brain dumping, as you mentioned, onto a page, it's sort of like once you throw it all out on the page, it's sort of you get to own it the way you want. And you can organize it differently. I don't even like people to think about them as chapters, just small sections, bite-sized sections to devour and write about, and small pieces each day. And definitely having a goal. That's why a lot of times I even have some people who have traditional publishers, editors will contact me and say, look, we have an author. We think they have a great story, but they're going to need some help. Because that's a lot of the reason why some of these books get ghostwritten by really famous people, because they have the same dilemma. Like, they stare at the page and have like this brain deadness,
brain freeze.
Brain freeze. Yeah, not from an icy, but from writing. But also making a commitment public. Making that public is really good. Like saying, "Hey, I'm writing a book," and tell people about it, and that you're going to be done on this date. That scares people. Like, how do I know I'm going to be done? I'm like, you don't. You just make.
You work towards it, right?
Right, and you can backwards map how many words you work on a day. Some people, 500 is a good start for number of words a day. If you write 500 words a day, which is not very much, maybe a couple of pages depending on the amount of typing you do. But I think that that's a good start. Some people can do it in 15 minutes. Some people might take longer. But I think that if you can produce that much writing in a day, you'll get your book done. And I think that's another important tool, is that people have daily writing goals. I know Pat Flynn for a while was posting, when we were working on his book, he would post his word count. So he could keep track and keep accountable for how much he's writing.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. And I think that's the difference is, for my books, I had the idea for 4 years sitting in my head. Yeah. And it's just like a weight. It's like, you have it hanging there. Unless you put it out there in the world, you can't release it. And besides that, it's, I definitely agree about breaking it down, because I found that it was really hard to kind of even take a chapter and maybe just a title. You say kind of come up with a title, and then once you just think of this month, I just need to do 1,000 words or whatever, kind of breaking it down that way. So that you say that having a word count, in other words, if you're doing it in Google Docs, it does it easy. Yep. You can say, how many words have I written? I think this also helps with the confidence, right? Like, oh, I did 1,000 words today. I'm so fabulous. Yeah.
I think if you do that, if you commit, I'm going to write 1,000 words today, or 1 hour, whatever comes first. That way you're like, that you feel like you've accomplished it. And it's really clear, because some people say, oh, I'm writing today. And I asked them, what were you writing? Well, I was writing emails. I was writing a blog post. No, on your book. Oh, well, I really didn't get to that. I go, well, that doesn't count as writing, right? That you're typing for things, but your book writing has to be specifically just for your book, not the number of things you.
The number of emails, right?
Right.
Now, what would you say about environment? Because I find out I get more creative when I go to Starbucks. The smell of coffee is like, ooh. And besides that, it removes my distractions. Do you think that maybe that is a play would help? That maybe changing things up a bit, like getting in a zone, or what would you advise for that?
Yeah, I had such a great idea and example. I tried not to write where I did work, where I did typical email answering and things like that. I would go to Starbucks or go to another comfy place, not too comfy, but somewhere where you felt like was breaking the routine, even a different part of the house.
Like on the bed. Bad idea. You're being snoozeball.
But I did the reason I took it on my notebook and did it, and that way I didn't have any excuse. The internet wasn't working, or battery wasn't charged. I still would write, whether I was in the airport, and those things mattered. But sometimes the routine is great. Getting away from your normal routine, making it fun. Like, oh, this is where I go. I have my coffee. This is a really fun part of my day. And that's why I tell authors, if it's not fun and easy, something's wrong. And I think our attitude is writing's hard and awful, and so we perceive it that way. But if you think, well, what would make this a really good experience? You'll go to it. You'll go, this is great. I want to do this today. So I think that's an important part of the routine as well.
I think it's got to reframe our thinking, because I think for all of us who are at least 20 and older, who went through the school system where, you got to sit down and sit still, and you got to write this, and you got to hold your pencil right, that whole kind of a school mentality of what writing's about. Like even my daughter, who's 16 now, she's like, oh, I hate English class. I'm like, listen, English you're going to use, and writing you're going to use forever. So you need to just pay attention. But would you say, is there a way of getting yourself over that mental, like, oh, you're sitting there like, what am I going to write? Like, who really cares what I have to say, right? What would you say about that mental thing?
Well, I think the mental block really does have to do with the fact of writing for purpose. Because in school, we really didn't write for us. We wrote for the teacher. We wrote for an assignment. And oftentimes we get it back and it's like, do I have to keep this? And then we just chucked it out. I think writing for purpose will really make the difference. If you knew if you knew that this would launch your business, if you knew you would not only be a salesperson in your field, but you were going to be the authority, because authority comes with authorship. You really gain authority. people really respect that, and you start to get people to notice. So you have a bigger purpose. For those people who don't like writing, I even had Pat do this exercise. He recorded some of it. I said, I want you to just dictate when you're in the car, or you're, take those small things, those Post-its, and say, today I'm going to do 3 of these sections. And I said, then speak it into an app like Rev, which you can, it'll translate, take it, they'll dictate it and send it back to you as a completed text. If you don't have like an iPhone or something, but Rev is a pretty cool app.
Rev, okay, perfect.
Yeah, for transcription. So you can do the entire book without physically sitting down. Some people speak better than they type. They just get frozen when they stare at a screen. That's legitimate. Those words count.
Yeah.
You're going to have to polish it, make it sound less like chat and more like a book. But like that's the legitimate way of getting word count out of your system into the page.
So, I mean, and this, of course, I love video, and I tend to talk better than I write. But for me, writing was really painful because I felt like slowing it down, because I talk so fast. So for me, slowing down the thought process to write it out, and then of course the perfection paralysis, we can get into that as well. Getting it over that step. So in other words, break it down, use a mind map, then take the sticky notes. Love that idea. So it's more visual, especially for us type of visual people. Then, so we want to get over that sort of hump of just doing it, because we've all heard of the whole writer's block, right? But would you say it's just starting almost like starts the flow? Like, okay, just start, even if you start writing and you look back later and you think it's a whole bunch of junk, just exercising it, would you say just getting it going? So how do we translate the little mind map circles to now putting them into words?
So that's great. So if let's say you did your mind map and you realize that, oh, these 5 or 6 things kind of go together. I would think of those as a section. Like these 3 things about X go together. And just decide today I'm going to write about these 6 things just in order. Just put them in whatever order, and you start to write about them or talk about them. And the reason I always encourage people to try something like writing initially without a computer is so easy to self-edit, right? The problem is you type. Oh, that's not good. You delete. Type. Oh, that's not good. You delete, right? So when you handwrite, it's a lot of work to erase. If you just wrote it out, you're like, I'm just going to keep going. If you get writer's block, I tell writers, look, just write what you're getting stuck about. Just write. You know what? I'm stuck today. I'm feeling this. I'm feeling that. And until you get over that writer's block, the perceived writer's block, then you'll move on. You're like, look, I wrote 500 words, and 500 words of it was dealing with how I was feeling. That's great. And eventually you'll break through it. But if you have no excuse for writing, everyone's capable of putting the words. Writer's block is sort of like a false notion, right? It's when you don't care enough about what you're talking about right then that it becomes a problem.
So kind of like knowing, getting the ideas out, breaking them down. And I think that what I like about the idea, I think I have to do that next time, is having the Post-it notes, you have an idea, because then you can kind of shuffle it like a puzzle. You can kind of move things, because it's like, if you think about how they film Hollywood movies, they might have a script and they have a story down, but when they go to record it, they don't necessarily record everything in order. They record them in maybe chunk. Okay, today they're going to do this outdoor shoot. So I think the same thing as we could do with our writing. Maybe if you're in the mode of maybe thinking of one part, just get a whole bunch of that done and then dissect it. But do you think is that the kind of process?
That's great. Don't write from, people think of a book of a chapter. Oh, start chapter 1, page 1, line 1. Don't do that. Because you're thinking of, oh my gosh, I wrote 1 page. I only have 159 left to go. That's a hard way to go. If you just pick and choose the one that gives you the energy that day, great, write about that. I think it really helps you. And those Post-its or those visual cues help you, move it from one side of the page to the other. Oh, these are done. I'm putting it on this side. That can really help. Or even put them up, post it on a wall where you can see them making progress. And if you don't worry so much about chapters and you just worry about sections that mean something to you, it's really much easier to devour. Organizing by chapter is probably the least important thing. That can be done with an editor or with just careful. Once it's done, you worry about that afterwards. But once the words are on the page.
It's kind of like we want all the information there without the editing, because rather have more than less words, because you can always delete, but you can't add back. So then would you say, when do you then, you've got all the ideas out, you've got them in different sections, they don't quite make sense yet. When do you go into the editing process? Would you say then, okay, this chapter, I'm going to edit it properly and then move on to the next chapter? Or would you advise that someone else takes a look at it for you? Where do we start chopping and changing and editing then?
I don't encourage anyone to edit until they're done completely. And the reason that is that people then they'll put the brakes on the writing process. And editing is, yes, the majority of your book is going to be editing. So don't worry about it, because if you spend time editing something that eventually you remove completely from the book, then you spent all that time editing something that didn't really make the cut, right? So you just want to get the content. The only person that can give the content is you, the author, right? You're the only one that knows the expertise that you have, and everyone has expertise. Whether it's somebody who has expertise in quilting or somebody who has expertise in real estate, everyone has an expertise because they have their own vision of the world. So like, I think that's the hardest part. People think, well, somebody already wrote about this, or somebody already said it like this, but not like you, not the way you said it, not the way you see it. So I think not editing until the end is great, because then you get an objective view of everything that you're looking at, not just, we tend to self-edit. We're really harsh on ourselves. So I don't encourage people to do that until they're done.
I think we are. That this the self-critic is worse, right? If you because I find the same thing as well. I find that the thought process is, when I'm in the creative flow, you want to flow, but then as soon as you start putting your editor hat on, you add the critiques, and it's like you have this fight. So it's almost like, okay, today I'm wearing my creator's hat. Tomorrow we'll be the stringent teacher and the policeman and the word police, and then start bringing all that stuff out. So I love how we can actually help you break it down, because it's just taking those first steps and getting over that fear. So we have our content down. Now we have it. I mean, okay, it's a jumbled mess, but so what? We can go into the editing process. Talk a little bit about the editing process. What do we keep, and what are good ideas? What are bad ideas? How do you then decide what stays and what goes?
I encourage people to have someone read it to them out loud, or you read it to them and have them listen to you. And people are like, oh no, I can't do that. We're like, you're giving this to the world. It's got to be read by somebody. It should be read by you first. Like, you're the most important person to read it, because it is your message. And reading it out loud helps you go, you can begin to self edit and go, oh, that's not how I meant to say it. It sounded different when I wrote it. I think that reading aloud, I know with my students, whether they're Pat Flynn or whether they're young students, I have some young authors as young as 13 writing full novels, and reading it out loud helps them go, oh, no, it should be more like this. You just don't hear it when you're writing, because in your head, all these things are going on. But when it comes out of your mouth or somebody else's mouth, you can edit right there and fix those things quickly. That's one thing I suggest, because it's a quick way to fix things without it being painful. I think there's a little bit of pain involved in the fact that you have to hear your words come out, but there's also some joy, like, oh, wow, I wrote that. That's pretty great. So that's one thing I would suggest. The self-editing process is much better if it's done aloud and not in your head.
Right. So kind of even just speak out every little chapter. And does that sound weird? I mean, I do this as well. Like when I do my Mimika TV interviews, like with the intro, I need to speak it out first to know where the pauses are. Because then it's funny if I write something, oh, that doesn't sound right. And then you can change it. There's something about the audible and reading it out. So we've definitely we've progressed. Our book is almost done, right? We're at the final push now. Would you say? I suppose I should have asked you this in the beginning, but it's definitely worthwhile mentioning now. So you have a book, right? And everybody who wants to give birth to this baby wants to have everybody appreciate it, right? So we have our book. Would you then say, do you approach getting it published? Like, say, if you're going the traditional route, you want to get a publisher and editor. Do you finish the book entirely before you try to get it out into the world, whether it's self-published or not, or is there a different process for both?
I would definitely find a good editor. I mean, the best books are made by editors. And I think that's the thing to understand. Editors are so different than creators. Creators create the content, they deliver the content, but editors make the pieces come together. Both content editors who realize that there's a flow and structure to your writing, and then copy editors who look for all those mistakes and grammar and the things that make it sound you more intelligent than maybe you might even be. They help you craft it. They help polish the outside of your work. So I think editors are really important, and they could be selected during the writing process so that you quickly can hand it over to them when you're ready to say, no, this is what I think my message is. I think it's important to have that lined up as soon as you can, as soon as you're getting near the end of the process. In fact, it's a great way to hold yourself accountable to say, I'm delivering it to you on this date. If you're self-publishing in particular, and there's not a publisher saying you have 18 months from now to be done, it's a great way, especially if you pay them up front, to hold yourself accountable, because you've already given out some money to them. And that's important. I mean, holding yourself accountable in those ways is good.
Oh, that's awesome. As I said, it's having a deadline. Like when I signed the contract, you shall deliver it on November 1st. I was like, but you know, it made you take action, right? It actually puts it out there. Now, the important part about what you're saying is handing it over. It's like handing your baby over to someone else, right? You put all this work and it's been in your head and it's been on you for you, like this own little secret project. But once you hand it over for someone else, how would you say, because us creators can be a bit precious, right? We don't really want our work to be criticized. No one wants to tell us our baby's ugly. So how do we take that and be objective about that? Like, say, for instance, your editor thinks things aren't working. I mean, would you adjust that before you publish it? Or because I hear so many instances of books tanking because they just weren't written well.
I think the relationship with your editor is important. So that's why I say select them ahead of time. Send off a small section of your writing, maybe not even from the book if you don't have anything yet. It could be early chapters, but more than anything, you want to know that they can speak to you in a way that makes sense. Because an editor's job is to, especially somebody who's working on content editor, they're trying to help you move to more of your authentic voice. And if you can't, if it feels like your teacher critiquing you and it feels like awful, you're not going to want to take their suggestions. You have to really have a good working relationship. So if you've ever heard like an author talk about, thank goodness my editor, because it's almost like their therapist. They're the ones who are like, you can do this. This is great. You just got to do a little more of this. And like, it's a gentleness. But if it's somebody who's just going to mark up your paper like school and hand it to you, you'll tend to freeze. So I think selecting somebody you can work with by giving them some of your early writing, let them see how their feedback lands on you is really helpful, because then you have a better chance of it being successful, because you're not masking your voice and them trying to fix all of your mistakes to make it sound more like them. And I think that's an essential piece.
Definitely like you. We need to give you some pom-poms. Cheerleader. Author's cheerleader. So I definitely want to get into, my hair is really irritating me today. I got major static. Anyways, back to the program. So I definitely want to get into the exciting bits about, okay, so we've written our book. Now we want to market it and sell it. And I want to dig right into those tips. But just to remind everybody, if you've recently joined us, here at Mimika TV, our guests kindly donate to our goodie giveaway. And today, Azul is kindly donated a author coaching session worth $375. So this is really worth it. So I want you to keep listening. I'm going to ask a question after our next part of our content. And then we will be able to give it away. You need to be fast on typing, because you will need to be the first one to give us our answer to our question. So let me think here. So I'm trying to think where we are now. Should I ask the question? Well, let me go ahead and ask the question out. So for those who've been listening, Azul did mention, what is he said the first step you should do when you want to write your book? What was his advice? How should you write it? And I know he used it. He gave us a tool, good old-fashioned way of doing things, hint, hint. A very easy way of getting your ideas out, because we get stuck, right? So what was his first tip? He says, when you have that idea, and I refer to it as a brain dump, he says you need to use what? Tool? Come on, go on. I know it's out there. David, where'd you go? I know you're normally there answering. So I'll give you some time to think about that. I'll come back and be able to give you, the first person who can give me that answer will be able to win our giveaway. So let's dive into the marketing side. Okay, so we've done our book and we've handed it over to our publisher, or we want to self-publish, right?
Right.
How do we get the thing sold without it being, just gathering dust? What's your advice on that?
So I think the important part is, earlier we talked about having it public, that you're writing a book. That's essential. You really need to tell people that this is happening. You need to build anticipation, because you're always going to have fans on social media. Now, some people like myself are like, I don't have fans. I don't have a platform. I don't have a way to get this out. Yeah, you have family, you have friends, and telling people you're writing a book and asking for input is a great way to guide them along. For example, in selecting a title, asking people to contribute. Here's 3 title ideas I have, and getting feedback is a way to engage your audience. Sharing some of your ideas for cover, talking a little bit about what you're writing about. Engagement early on is really important, because if you try to sell your book when you finish it, it's probably too late. Right. I think it's important to build the audience early on. That's really important. And the other thing,
and also I think they take ownership, right? Like if they feel like, I notice Pat on SPI has been mentioning a lot, he's writing his book, so it kind of like makes you feel like you're egging him on and he wants to ask for feedback. Like then you kind of feel like a bit of an ownership of the project. Like if you help pick the artwork, something like that. And then people are more likely to support you So I was like, I know, we need to think of our book as like a Kickstarter campaign. We're going to write the book and then you're going to buy it because you're going to help support me.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
It's great. They even have platforms just for authors. Publishizer is a platform just for authors whose job is to
Would you say Publishizer? How do you type that in?
Yeah.
How do you spell that?
Oh gosh, now you're asking me to type and spell, and I'm not sure I could do that.
And my spelling, and always autocorrect.
Izer.
Publish Izer, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So that's a great way of being able to help you get your book out there. Yeah. So what if like as you mentioned, and I know I hear this a lot, people want to write or they want to use their book to get an audience, but you're saying you actually need to have an audience to sell your book. So it's the whole chicken and the egg story, right? Mm-hmm. So what would you say they do first? Build the audience? And you said while you're writing the book, but how do you do that if you don't have anybody who follows you yet?
Well, first, if you don't, be on social media, pick your platform of choice. Focus on that, whether it be Twitter or Facebook, wherever you have followers to start with and engagers, and start to engage with other audiences that are in your niche. If you're writing about real estate, then are you a part of any groups that there's real estate going on? Are you going to be involved in those communities enough for people to respect you? If you're just a voyeur, it's really hard. You have to start engaging with the audience and contributing. People always ask me questions like, well, how did you get to be in a position where you're the one helping Pat write his book? When a year ago, I didn't have a book. I was just like the rest of the people sitting there going, I would like to write a book. Well, you have to engage. You have to be an audience giver. If you're a taker and you don't give, people see through that. You have to be a giver. And I think early on, if you ask for their help, people, like you said, they really want to help. They want to contribute.
Definitely.
So building an audience is super important. And asking people to be superheroes in your book process, like asking for early readers, asking for people to, hey, say, I'm willing to read a chapter, or I'm willing to share this in my social networks, is important, because then people are invested, right? They know that it's coming, and they know that they've contributed. So I think that's super important as well. These are the...
Well, I definitely want to, because I think what... well, I don't know if you would answer this in two sections or if it's the same section of, the difference between, what is the easiest way to publish, right? Would you say self-publishing?
I would say it's definitely the easiest, because you have control over the content, the choices in the cover, in the copy, what you do with it afterwards, turning it into an audiobook. You have control of that. A traditional publisher, they decide those factors, right? You might have a little bit of input. For the most part, they decide all that. So I think if you're especially deciding to use this as a tool for business and you want to use that content for you, I think it's really effective to be in charge of your publication. Doesn't mean that I don't think a traditional publisher isn't great. And just like you went through a traditional publisher, there's some parts of it that are fantastic. But as you know, once they get the book out there, it's really selling books is still up to the author.
That was my biggest shock. Really, honestly, I thought, writing a book, now that's going to set me up. Like, once I'm an author, I can use that in my bio, and then, everybody will know me. No, they do the work in helping you get it out there, but it's up to you to actually publicize it. And knowing that now, that's why I think I'm a little allergic to writing a book. But I know I have another one in me, just not right now. It's like, okay, I'll pick and choose when I make that commitment. But what would you say, because I think not many people know this, like the whole New York best-selling author thing. Let's talk about that and how you actually, the same thing applies to podcasts. It's about the thunderclap. Tell us a little bit about that, why that's important.
Well, really, reviews, I think. Reviews. I can speak to reviews in particular, and downloads and purchases, particularly on Amazon. The reason you want to engage those people early on and build an audience is reviews matter. Reviews matter a ton, particularly in Amazon if you're doing a self-publishing platform, or if you're launching traditionally, having reviews matter. That's why people are willing to give away books, giving away, hey, if you purchase the book, there'll be giveaways and affiliates that they have giveaways, because reviews matter. So you want those early engagers to give you reviews. There's sort of like Amazon is a huge search engine, and reviews is part of the juice. The other thing that's really part of the juice is like when you launch it, just like a podcast, you only have a certain window to be like new and noteworthy, right? So the same thing with Amazon. When it comes out, the number of downloads is important. And the number of people who get it into their hands and start to read it. Kindle Select, the number of people turn the page. You're not getting money unless people actually turn the page. So you want people to turn the
Ah.
pages. So you want them to be engaging enough and the content to keep people moving forward. So you want the right audience as well. And then lastly, you want to sustain sales by running campaigns and running promotions to get people to continue to use your book. And Amazon, again, rewards you for having more than one book. They say if you're not just a one-off author and you have multiple books, they begin to use those rankings as another algorithm to help boost your sales. They want you to be successful because they make money if you make money. So they really have the audience in mind. So you have to really think about all those things. And, you know, with New York Times bestseller, it's about the number of books sold, right, in the first number of weeks. And there's ways that people do that. You know, there's also...
Yeah, I've heard of some dodgy ways as well. Well, they'll buy people, well, like somebody, I don't even know if they have them in existence anymore, but they used to would say buy 20,000 copies and then click order on that particular week. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, this book shot up the #1 best. And it almost wasn't real. To me, I was shocked when I heard that. I was like, so what? It's almost like a false sense of popularity, which totally grates my cheese. But anyway... Right. Back down to what really matters is really your audience will support you by having the book and giving out good content. And a friend of mine as well, Erin Smith, recently launched her book, and she did a Kindle offer for $1. Like you can get your hands on this book for 7 days only through the Kindle store. Or no, it was 99 cents. Yeah. And that seemed to help a lot. And I was like, oh, I never thought about that. So something like that, when you said offers, like giving them incentives just to buy it.
Absolutely. And you can give it away if you're part of Kindle Select for a certain number of days. And people say, why would you want to give your book away? Well, because downloads matter. It's part of the algorithm. It's part of hey, people have to get this in people's hands so they can review it. And if they don't know who you are, you have some of your friends that will review it and you have some of your audience to review it, but you need some natural reviews as well. And as if people start to download it, then the price goes up to 99 cents. And as it gets downloads and reviews, you can move up the next week to $1.99. That's why you see those fluctuations in prices in Kindle books, because it's not a cost of production. You can actually change the price and vary it to boost sales, because it's better to give it away and get lots of downloads and reviews for the longevity of your book. To have 50, 65-star reviews is a lot better than to get, I sold 6 at $9.99. Well, six and 3 reviews, and they're all from grandma and uncle and next door neighbor. And I tell
powerful. You, exactly. And this is why I'm really relooking this whole writing process for myself, because I mentioned I published mine traditionally, where the publisher had to do a print run of 30,000 books. So they have these books in boxes. They want to, get rid of them. So the thing is that they launch it, but then what happens is they start cutting the price down, which then is okay, you see Amazon sale of a book, and it almost for me creates a negative connotation. Well, if this book's on sale, maybe it's not such a good book, right? Whereas if you start off cheaper, which is bizarre, but it seems to work, right, with Amazon, start off cheap or give it away or 99 cents and then up the price. Once you've got a ton of reviews, then the audience, kind of the perception is different.
Yeah. And if you do a printed book on Amazon, for example, they have an affiliate space called Create Space, and that's Amazon owns Create Space. If you do a print on demand, which you can print 1 or you can print 10,000, and it doesn't cost the author anything, because it is print on demand, and you do the Kindle book, you can price the printed book at $9.95, and then your book, Kindle book, at 99 cents. It shows it as a discount, which seems like a better value. You're like, oh my God, that book's $9.99, but it's selling for 99 cents. I should buy it. It's a value. So you want to have both printed and Kindle versions so you can use that value proposition. You want people to believe it as a value and not just a cheap book. So I think that's one thing important to understand.
So in all of this, what would you say, if we had to round it all up, what advice would you give authors that maybe you haven't got their book out? What would you say if you had to round it into a takeaway tip? What advice would you give them?
If I haven't written my book yet, it's really get a deadline and make it public. If it's you, create your own contract to yourself and share it with the world. I'm publishing my book on my birthday 1 year from now or 6 months from now. I always say do it within 6 months or less, because really that's the bulk of when the writing happens anyways.
Right. After that, it's just a drag.
People are like, oh, I'm researching. I'm like, oh, that's an excuse for not writing. I heard that before. I used to say that. I'm researching. The other thing is that, so create your own contract, share it with the world, be committed, and then have a daily plan. I'm writing this much a day.
So are you writing your own book, or are you working with everybody else right now?
Right now, I'm on a second book. Actually, an interesting book that's about the last 20 years as a school teacher. I collected quotes from kids that asked them, what makes a good teacher great? What's the difference between a good teacher and a great teacher? And I have about thousands and thousands of these quotes. That's going to be a book of illustrated advice from kids to teachers. So we're working on that. So I'm not really writing it in the traditional sense. We're putting it together and illustrators writing that. And it's going to be more of a illustrated guide to teachers. So it's a different kind of book. It's not something that I'm having to spend more time on the typing part, but just more of gathering the people together to make it work. And then another book that I'm working on about how can teachers get the publishing process in the classroom. If kids knew that they were going to publish a book,
good idea.
yeah, if they were writing for a purpose, they might actually care about writing. So.
Wow. Well, that's a good idea. Like I can get my 5-year-old, she can make her own little book. We can copy and paste it and she can type it up. I like that idea. That's super cool. Yeah. Well, I got to say, there's some great content we offered here. And I'm going to say, we haven't got a winner for our giveaway. It's a last one for everybody who's watching. To recap what Azul said, what is the best way to start writing your book? And, it's like, what does he say? Do you type it or do you write? Total giveaway. I think, people are just too slow today, so it's fine. We'll be able to do it online, and I can just claim it myself because I'm going to be working on my book in the future. Except mine is more of a memoir, like a story. But I'm really nervous about putting that out in the world because I've had lots of drama in my life. Could make a Hollywood movie, darling. But
I definitely know that memoirs. So
I'll have to look you up on that when I'm ready to do my next book. I'm still recovering from my last one.
Yeah, all right. Well, you're welcome to use it for yourself when we can sit down on a coaching session for it.
That would be awesome. Well, fabulous. I shall certainly do that. Well, I'm going to say thanks again for joining me here. I so appreciate this awesome content. There's some great knowledge bombs you've given us here about breaking it down, getting over that fear of writing your book. So I just really appreciate your time, and I will be in touch very soon. So thanks again for watching Mimika TV. So if for those who are watching, if you want to get more great resources that I only share with my newsletter community, come over to my website at mimikacooney.com. I'm actually hosting a 5-day video challenge. And what that's going to do, if you're scared about using video, you can come and join us. It's 5 days of just using your iPhone. And I'm going to coach you through how to deliver and speak on video, and how you can use video to position yourself as an expert, build your email list, and sell products, because that's what I'm known for. I'm the person who does the video. So come on over to mimikacooney.com. And again, I can't even spell my own name this morning. Like, seriously, what is wrong with me? There you go for our video download. And I'll look forward to seeing you on the other side of this. So thanks again for everyone for joining us. Till next time.